Actually, we don't do.
No, we don't do bills.
Yeah, okay. So I call this meeting of the Kennedale Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is here. Okay, and that is present at this meeting and has been duly called. And notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Opens Meetings Act, Texas Governance Code, Chapter 551. Okay, and first on the first item up is going to be roll call. Ms. Villagomez.
Here.
And Mr. Sean Glovier.
Here.
Ms. Felicia Moody.
Here.
Mr. Esteban Serta.
Here.
Daryl Owens is here, and Dr. Maria Douglas is going to be absent, and Ms. Maria Cruz Perez is on her way, so she may be here in just a little bit later. Okay, so next, item number 3 is public comments on any agenda item. So, Mr. Serta, did anyone sign up for?
There's none.
There are no one signed up for any comments on the agenda item. So we will then move from there to section 4, which is the annual financial report, year ending August 31, 2023. Mr. G.
Now we'll turn it over to our auditor, Mr. Rogers.
All right.
All right, just to remind you, the blue bound document is actually what gets sent into TEA in a PDF format, so forth. But in the interest that I don't bore you with a lot of audit details, is I've given you a little handout statement. Loose inside your audit report. There you go. And I encourage you to do this. If you've got a question, please stop me and let's field your question. Because usually if you got a question, somebody else in the room's got the same question. I'm going to start on what I call the executive summary. And this is just the highlights. So like I said, y'all may have questions, and please stop me. The district is very good. I'm just gonna step back and give you an overview. The district does not have a finding of any sort. And I'm so thankful because unfortunately, with the districts that you're 62% of them that we've had audits with had findings. And I just don't like that. And so anyway, your staff did a wonderful job. Did really good. Okay, just to remind you of this is y'all in your district keeps your records as far as your accounting records and so forth exactly the way you're supposed to, in that every dollar that comes in this district from property taxes, state revenue, federal revenue, or if you go borrow money, it all gets accounted for coming in. Like in y'all's case, you issued bonds there in August. That money gets counted, and the also the payments and everything that goes back out is accounted for. And it's a good system for keeping up with, exactly all the money coming in, going out. So every time I'd ever been to board training, they always, somebody would ask me, said, well, what's your general fund balance? And y'all's general fund last year started with $12,855,000. It came down about $716,000. Not real bad. Ended up with $12,139,000. So, not a bad year at all. As far, and I'll just tell you this: that the districts we've looked at all over the state, it's just last year was a strange year. You're getting a lot of federal funds and money going back and forth, and it just. People had kids and attendance, and it was just a strange year as far as financially. So I was glad to see that. Your lunchroom fund had a $583,889 balance, and you added $147,740 to $731, and just the board, y'all got to help your financial staff here with this. Is what happens is because of the monies that you spent, so forth, y'all are still over. You got excess cash funds in your lunchroom fund, but it wasn't material enough to be a finding. And the reason it wasn't is because some of the things you've already done. As far as buying equipment and so forth. But, they're gonna need, and be probably coming to you and ask, probably asking for amendments and so forth as far as for this year for your lunchroom fund, and that's why, if they're trying to get this money spent down so that you don't have a finding.
But it did affect our first rating,
Yes, that's right.
because we had an excess.
Yeah.
Now, we do have plans to use some of
Yes.
those funds to, upgrade our cafeteria, so I mean, that's one of the things that we've been talking about for years, so. As we're doing all of our renovations, that will be part of it as well.
Jimmy's probably already recorded all of it and everything, but one of the things I'll also bring out is the fact that Jacqueline, is anything that you can find out all the way from property insurance on the, lunchroom bill, whatever, anything else that can be reclassed from general operating is be hunting for those items, just to help yourself, so to speak. So anyway, that's kind of what took place in the lunchroom. Your debt service or interest and sinking fund started with $2,275,000. It came down a little bit at $61,000, ended up at $2,213,878. So not much change in that, even though you paid all the payments on your bonds and debt as you're required to. Now, the capital projects fund, they basically started, and it ended up at August 31 with a fund balance of $44,734,000. And just remind you this, it was late August when those bond money came in, so there's no way that they, had time to spend that money. So that's why at August 31 had such a balance, so to speak. All right, I might point up this, I've worked with Jimmy long enough, he knows all the details of this, but it's extremely important that you find out at year end, how your district settles up with TEA. Make a long story short, years ago, there was a district that they were sitting there and looking at their audit report, and they thought they were $4 million in the black, everything looked good, and a superintendent candidate said, I just got a question, so I just looked at TEA's website, it says we're overpaid $12 million. They were, so they were actually $8 million in the red. So it's extremely, so like, in y'all's case, Jimmy already had all that stuff figured and was there, and that's a good thing, is that, your district and staff know what to look for. So you were actually overpaid $1,215,000, but the good news is now that's already been taken out of your fund balance. So that's not gonna carry over.
Yep. Sure.
So anyway, and with the lunchroom fund, the way things going, a lot of times you have to transfer money out of the general fund, the lunchroom fund to cover a deficit. Y'all haven't had that issue in like the last couple of years, so that's why we're trying to spend money down in that fund instead of add to it. Okay. Now, like I said, the way you keep your records is exactly the way you're supposed to. It's a good system. But way back in 2002, the King World started complaining a little bit, said, well, it's a good system, but it can make things look a little misleading. And so your fund balance was $12 million. What if on August 31, your superintendent and board president had gone down and said, we need to borrow $50 million to remodel some other buildings? Well, unless your contractors are faster than the guys I work with, one day they couldn't have spent that money. So what would happen is you borrowed money, and in the system, if it was just for upgrade of current facilities, it would add your general fund, you would have showed a $62 million fund balance. So it can look a little misleading. So what they did is they said, let's have a second set of financial statements that gives us the true indication of where your district is better or worse off financially. So that's what this row is, the government-wide statements. And to simplify as much as possible, basically what you do is you take your fund balances from all your funds, add your buildings, your equipment, and you subtract off the depreciation, and you also subtract off debt, and come up with those fund balances and convert it to a net position. And net position for the district last year was, started the year at 19,952,796, and you actually added 3,029,105. So, what that indicator tells us is that your district truly is financially better off at the end of the year than what they were at the beginning of the year. And that's a positive thing. Now, I guess a bunch of people like me was sort of griping about that, is that in order to get that net position, we have to add to your records a liability for the unfunded state portion of TRS and healthcare, and we're talking some huge numbers. $8-9 million is not unusual at all. And so what I'm just saying is like, this board does not have control over what happens at the state. And the state level, they have recognized their responsibility because several times in the last few years, they've taken and added like 230 million to that fund for the state putting money in there so that there's less of that, the TRS retirement that's unfunded. So anyway, with that, I thought it was humorous that several years back, exactly what your superintendent was talking about is they said, okay, for your school first rating, we're gonna take those numbers out of your net position and just like, what would be your net position without all this stuff that you really don't have control over? And so what I've done is given you what that modified net position was. You can see instead of starting with 19, nearly 20 million, you would have started with 40 million. As far as the net position. You would actually increase 2,372,000 and end up with 42,476,000. So that to me is a true indication of what your net position. You're most like, well, why is one different from the other one? Is because of the money they stuck in the healthcare funding, is the actual liability, so to speak, went down in that area, so it decreased it a little bit. That made things look a little strange. Okay, just for y'all's information, I've given you what I call the economic factors and attendance data. It's just information for you. It just always helps me to give like a 5-year review of certain things to see how things are heading. Like the ADA for the district, last year was 2,669.1 and was at 2,638.7 and actually is down 1.14%. So attendance wise, y'all have some of the problems a lot of the districts have. There's a little bit of drop in attendance there. The staff, they went from 383 to 385.6. What they do is they use a moving average over a period of time because I doubt y'all got 0.6 of a person.
I was about to ask that.
Not yet.
So anyway, that's where that comes from.
It's complicated.
Your long-term debt, might point out, went from that 21,518,000 to 65,201,000. And remember those bonds that issued late in August, that was 48,540,000, that increase. So you actually dropped 5 million during the year as far as the debt that you had. So that all looked very positive. My wife has to remind me about this next number. Every time your property tax values last year went from that year before the 1,687,000 to 1,952,000. So the values went up a little bit, and y'all set your property tax rate appropriately at that 0.9447. And I might point out that your state revenue did increase 1.23%. So a little bit of increase, even though we were overpaid. That's after we were overpaid, so to speak. Now, as far as with the audit itself, we're required to look at certain things. First of all, we look at the numbers that the district has. If anything we see that we think needs to be adjusted, we propose adjustments, and like in y'all's case, all those are in good shape, and as far as the numbers itself, we've given the district an unmodified opinion, which means it's not modified for a problem. It's exactly what you want. And we used to just call this, Jimmy probably remembers very well, it's a clean opinion. But now they got to call it an unmodified. And TEA requires that every district in the state have a government auditing standards audit, and two of those sections, one, we have to look is like, what kind of internal controls do y'all have over your financial assets? Do you have a system whereby that, it's checking on itself to look, make sure that somebody's not running off with money? And we found your system to be very, very adequate, so very good there. They also require that TEA spells out about 9 different areas that we have to look at, see how you're complying with laws and regulations. And basically, with that, it's just, it's like, has enough security's been pledged? Has there, been illegal, transactions with board members? So we have to look at transactions with board members through, and just look how things are going. And we did not uncover any problems in those areas. So no issues whatsoever. Because your district receives more than $750,000 in federal money, you have to have a special, what they call single audit, which is an audit of your federal funds. We have to find what is the biggest major program that y'all have, which for last year was your ESSER 2 and 3 funds basically. And so those funds we looked at, we did not uncover any problems with the way that was spent. And that's amazing, because if your superintendent, they tried to drive him crazy. It was about every 6 weeks, they come out with a new set of rules and said, oh, now you can spend it over here. And then they kept changing how you could spend it. So, but the district did very well in that area. Okay, so we had no findings there. I'm gonna turn the page, and I've just got for you revenues by source, and just look, the local revenue was up 11.7%. The state revenue was up 1.2%, and the federal revenue was up 2.6% from the previous year. So all those looked right in line, and I like to see those increasing. The next page is, I always like, and I guess I got taught this a long time ago, look at what is the district's operating expenditures, knock out the debt, and knock out the capital outlay, just like your basic normal operating expenses. How did things go? And are they comparable? And y'all's looks very good. It's as I expected. There was increases in salaries and so forth. And most of the contract services and operating supplies, a lot of that this year, last year came from the safety and security grant and the funds that were spent in that area. Had a lot to do with those. So those came in just as we expected. The percents are all in line. The next page just gives you your expenditures with every category, including your debt and your capital outlay. And all those, after going through the testing, look very reasonable. Now, I laid loose in your handout packet something I thought about this morning. Is at the back up there is just a listing of what your capital outlay spent last year was. And
You flipped further.
Yeah,
There it is.
get right there. Y'all can just kind of see what, just as a reminder, the areas for the previous year that you spent as far as capital outlay. The biggest area was that Arthur, renovation, so forth, $4 million there. So everything came through pretty good. We had the equipment and so forth in that area, so.
Sorry, they were having a hard time finding the sheet. It was at the very back, so it's a single sheet. I think they didn't.
We're good.
Have the right sheet. talking about this sheet?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Like I said, I'm guilty of adding that this morning as I was
Find it.
reviewing the information. I thought, oh, they might like to have
Yeah.
a breakdown of what was spent in that capital outlay area. Give you a second to look at that. Okay, the next report that I'll look at is the material weaknesses. We did not uncover any weaknesses in your financial control system. The next letter deals with a communication we're required to give y'all at the conclusion of the audit. Everything's good in that area. We encountered no difficulties in performing the audit. Everything that we found that looked like it needed to be adjusted has been adjusted, and there wasn't any disagreements with management, so that was all real clean. The last letter is the management letter, and basically with it, what I've done is try to remind everybody of the new accounting requirements for long-term leases, which is a lease longer than 1 year, or long-term subitas, and everybody's like, well, what the heck is a subita? And that's a subscription-based IT arrangement, and it's like you have software comes from a service center, stuff like that. A lot of them are in 1 year and don't bother you, but if they're longer than 1 year, then just like with the leases, you have to, even though it's a lease, you have to play like you bought it. And you gotta play like you got a loan, and you got an expenditure for whatever it is. And I'll bring this up because I've already had a district this year that got 2 buses and they leased them for 4 years, but they didn't count them as a purchase. So what happened is when we had to book that purchase, then it exceeded the budget and cost to find it. So that's the reason I bring those up, is that if you run across anything that something comes up that you got to lease, be aware that you may need to be, counting this as a purchase, even though it truly is a lease. The last item I've really sort of already covered is the not material excess and our food service fund, so forth, and we just need to continue to keep working, which your staff is doing that, to try to work that balance down. And, I've got them used over the years that 40 years ago, I didn't really know and understand this, that is when you have a district that's a small district that has 400 kids in the district, they always have to supplement the money. But the way the system is, you get paid the same amount for the more kids you got, and it gets to covering the overhead, everything else that's involved in there. So the districts with your size and larger, a lot of times it's where that you have those quote excess funds. Now, they kind of irritate me is they look at all the money in your lunchroom, even though your kids can pay money for lunches and your staff can pay money in there, but any money that's sitting in there, the feds say it's theirs. So that's how they make their computation. All right, let me just see what questions y'all might have. I said it was a good year for the district.
Question? No?
No, and I've already talked to Dr. Douglas, and she had no questions either. I haven't talked to Ms. Cruz Perez to find out if she had any questions about anything, so.
Okay.
Everybody's okay?
Thank
When
you.
you get a clean report, like you just gave us, like you said, I think there are smiles all around.
That's right.
In fact, these last few that I've got about 4 coming up here, and all of them's clean. All of them, a bunch of them before were not clean, so I'm tickled to death. I don't like having findings.
Yeah.
And I believe our audits for the past, how many years have been,
Clean.
So,
Been good. Yep.
not to brag, for us to brag or anything, but
If it's good, it's good.
It hurts in school
I'm
first,
gonna brag all
like
you want.
uniforms.
hey, Ms. West, no pressure,
Yeah, no kidding.
She can handle it. She can do it.
Yes, she-
So how has this
There you
impacted?
go, toot your own horn too. That's good.
How much did it impact us, for us having an overage in the,
Lunchroom.
yeah?
It only
in the
impacted
food?
us on the first rating.
We yeah, first rating, it knocked us down a couple of points, which it put us at 89.
89?
Instead of, if we would've been 90,
90%.
would have been an A again. I mean, it was 1 point different. I mean, it knocked us down, I think, more than 1 point,
Like
but
three or
it kept
three
us
points?
from
Getting it
being in
in.
that A range. So we were B, I mean, B, which is solid, but I mean, A sounds better, you know. and
A's better.
Yeah, it's all it is. But like I said,
Better
we,
for your GPA.
it's hard to determine with that because rules are changing a lot there as well, and as they change the lunchroom rules and, what's funded, what's, what do you get reimbursed for, what do you not get reimbursed for? And, Lori does Ms. Huddleston does a good job, but it's hard to balance all of that. And, she had a big fund balance when I got here. COVID took that away. The fund balance has come back up. We just haven't had, we planned on upgrading cafeterias. That was part of the original plans when we were looking at facilities and everything. COVID come along and did away with that ability to do that, and now we're getting back to the point where we can,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, I can just tell from this deal that y'all are increase your salary, so forth with your staff, and, you're repairing, remodeling your facilities and so forth. I mean, just from, used to be a board member, you're doing things to help your students. So it's a positive thing.
All right, we good?
Well, yeah,
Thank
All
you, sir.
good. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Just,
We just need to get a,
Signature, we gotta vote
Yeah.
for.
we gotta get approval.
Yeah, we'll
vote.
approve.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Glovier.
I move to approve the financial report as presented.
Motion by Mr. Glovier
Second.
and seconded by this wonderful lady to my right. Oh, I'm sorry, am I supposed to say your name directly?
Oh, wonderful lady to the right is accurate.
Okay,
For the record.
for the record, that's Ms. Moody. Okay, all in favor of the motion, let me know by the sound aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion passes unanimously.
It's on her license. Wonderful lady to the right.
3 copies up there for you to sign.
Oh, that's funny.
3 copies, okay. May I borrow your pen?
Yeah.
Lady to my right?
Oh, now it's just lady.
I know.
Now it's just
Oh, we've already shortened it. Oh, no.
how
Well, that's too
quickly.
much for a license plate.
Et cetera, dot,
Yeah,
dot,
you're
dot.
right.
There are.
That's too much.
That's funny.
Lady's just gonna be saying, hey.
Hey, you.
Hey, hey, you.
This can be like that.
If that is pointing at you, just points at you.
Secretary, just,
Oh, goodness.
there's one more for
This
the
one?
district.
Oh, the one before
They'll
that.
have a signed copy.
Oh, it's this thing.
Okay, which was that here?
Certificate of-
Two loose pages and two loose.
James.
Two loose pages and a book.
I
Two
can't
loose
read.
pages and the, got it, thank you.
Because you're a student. And I was thinking, oh, let me think about the birds that I know of.
Oh,
The wonderful lady to my right, I return the pen.
Thank you
pen
very
by
much.
chance? There you are, sir. Give me the pen. Mine's decided to die.
The wonderful lady to my right, may I borrow your pen?
Sorry. No, I don't.
Here you go.
Thank you. It's like the most important thing I'm supposed to have.
There you go.
Just that? Okay, all right, there you go. All right, thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it very much.
Always appreciate how thorough you are.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we do.
Well, if you'd had my father, you wouldn't have a choice.
Hey, I feel that.
All right,
Right.
we got a vote. Adjourn.
All right,
Mr.
so there are
President,
no more items on the agenda, so, Mr. Glovier,
I move to adjourn this meeting and get up out of here.
commission, the board meeting is adjourned.
What time is it?
Very good, 6:33.
Hey, and we